Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Amy. I'm a mum of 2 boys and really happen to love books. So if you'd like to see more from my channel on my cosy little corner of the internet, then please consider subscribing. It would be amazing to have you here. I am ready for the Christmas season. I am ready for it to be winter. I have my Christmas tree up downstairs. That's why all the boxes are here. As you can probably tell, we've been decorating for Christmas. I am so ready. So in this video I am going to go through all of my winter reading recommendations. So I haven't been reading actively for that long, maybe about a year. I've been actively reading for, so I don't have that many recommendations, but I feel like there's a few books in this list. Some of them are really well known and really predictable, others aren't that predictable, so I hope this gives you some inspiration on your winter TBRs and your winter reading ideas. So shall we jump right into my winter recommendations? So this first book is so predictable it should have a stamp on the front cover that says predictable, cozy, autumn and winter read. I've included this in my autumn recommendations and my cozy recommendations. Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. This is perfect for autumn and winter, I think, just because of the pure coziness, and I always associate baking and coffee shops with winter. I think that's because even before we had children, that was something that me and my husband did quite regularly all the way through dating, engagement, marriage, and now we do it with our children. We always go and see the coffee shops and look at the Christmas lights in all of the windows and everything in the storefronts and everything like that. So this makes me think of baking, which then makes me think of Christmas and going into a coffee shop. So if you are unfamiliar with Legends and Lattes, this is kind of based off of Dungeons and Dragons. So we are following an orc called Viv, and she has been a fighter for many years, but she has decided she is done with that, and she goes to a new little town and starts a coffee shop because coffee is pretty much unheard of in most of the realm that this book is set in, and not a lot of people have even heard of coffee, let alone tried it. So she opens a little coffee shop, and this is such a cozy read, heartwarming, low stakes fantasy, perfect for winter and any cozy nights in. Next is actually a series. Now I read these many years ago. This has been made into a film and series adaptation. I've watched the film, nowhere near as good as the books, and I have not watched the BBC series adaptation, but my husband has and said it was amazing, and it is the His Dark Materials series by Philip Pullman. So this includes The Golden Compass, The Subtle Knife and The Amber Spyglass. These covers alone are enough to make me think of winter, but The Golden Compass especially, which is the only one I'll really be talking about because it is the first book in the series. But if I open this cover up here, it's got the Northern Lights. Now this is also called Northern Lights. I think it's either called Northern Lights in some other countries, or it was originally called Northern Lights but then its name was changed to The Golden Compass. So this is book 1 in the His Dark Material series, and in this book we are introduced to our female main character, Lyra Balakwa, and she is a student at Oxford. In this universe, younger children get to attend Oxford. It is more of a school rather than a university, and her demon, who is kind of like a familiar, Pan, they go exploring, and one day they end up being in one of the scholars' offices at the wrong time, so they end up hiding in a cupboard, and while in this cupboard they overhear a conversation about dust, which in this universe is basically a person's soul and the part of the soul of demons as well. So children have been taken from Oxford, including Lyra's best friend Roger, and that launches her into this adventure to try and find her friends. And she ends up in Svalbard, where she meets a polar bear named Ulrich Bernison and a witch named Serafina Pekkala. This has got so many tropes in it that I love. It's got adventure, it's got found family, it's got suspense, it's got so many things in it. But this is perfect for any age, I think. I would say middle grade up. Definitely not suitable for younger children, just because some of the themes in this can be quite brutal. But this is an absolutely stunning series and I would recommend it to anybody. I'm also sorry if it's starting to get quite dark. It is currently 3:40, so I'm making the most of this last hour of light I have left before I go and get my boys from nursery. So I'm sorry if it is starting to get a bit dark because the sun is actually starting to go down. So I'm going to try and film this as quickly as I can. Next is another cosy read. Now this wasn't as good as Legends and Lattes, and I have heard mixed things about this because the writing isn't amazing. It's not perfect, but I still loved it nonetheless, and it is A Fellowship of Bakers and Magic by J. Penner. This gives very similar vibes to Legends and Lattes, but we are following a bake-off competition rather than a coffee shop, and this is the first book in the Adenishire series. So there are multiple books in this series and I want to get my hands on them at some point. But in A Fellowship of Bakers and Magic, we are following Arletta, who is a human baker, and she has to graft much more than any other magical being because she doesn't have magic in her bakes. So she has to work really, really hard, and her orc neighbours, who have kind of been like her adoptive parents because she lost her parents at a young age, they put her name into the Langheim baking competition, and she's whisked off by a very handsome elf, which is this man here, named Theo, and it turns into so much more than just a baking competition. There is found family in this, there's a bit of romance, there is a little bit of, there isn't high stakes, it's definitely low stakes fantasy, but there is definitely a lot of cattiness in this as well. It does show how competitions can get rather catty, especially those who have competed more than once, but it does show that you do not need magic to make something magical, and yeah, I really, really enjoyed this and I hope you do too. Now this one, the cover alone just gives winter. This is just one of the most gorgeous books I have ever seen, and I cannot wait to read the other book that this author has put out. I think it came out last year, very early this year or last year. But the book that I have already read is Midnight in Everwood by M.A. Kuzniar. And the book that I want to read, which is on my 10 Before the End / Winter TBR, if you want to watch that, I'll put that up above and down below, is Upon a Frosted Star. Now, Upon a Frosted Star is a Swan Lake retelling, and Midnight in Everwood is the Nutcracker retelling. I haven't actually read the original Nutcracker, so I went into this with quite low expectations because I didn't really know what it was, you know, a retelling of. I know the rough story, but not the full story. So I went in with not many expectations for this, but I adored it. I thought it was beautiful. We are following Marietta, and her dream is to be a ballerina, but being in the early 1900s in England, her parents and family are like, absolutely not. That is not something that a lady should be doing at your age. You need to get married and have babies, basically. But Marietta does not want to do that. But then her hand is almost forced when a doctor named Dr. Drosselmeyer comes in and basically wants to force Marietta to marry him. She denies him and she ends up being chased by Drosselmeyer, and then she hides in an old grandfather clock, which was one of Drosselmeyer's inventions. And she is transported to Everwood, which is a land where there is snow everywhere and everything can be eaten. There's, you know, castles made of candy and everything's just really magical. But then the king of Everwood spots Marietta and decides that she is going to dance for him, and he doesn't care if her feet start to hurt and start to bleed. She's going to keep dancing just for his entertainment. So poor Marietta, she has not had a good time, but there is another man in this that ends up catching her eye, and things kind of take a turn from there. I'm not going to say any more, but this book is gorgeous, and if this cover doesn't say winter, I don't know what does. Absolutely gorgeous read. And the last physical book I have, the rest I have read but I don't have physical copies of. The last physical book I have is a collection of short stories, and it is Nordic Tales. So this isn't by anyone in particular because it's a collection of short Nordic tales from Norse mythology and Iceland and all the places in the Nordics. And this cover is just absolutely gorgeous. I'll just read the synopsis on the back. Trolls haunt the snowy forests and terrifying monsters roam the open sea. Humans turn into wild animals and animals help hapless humans. A young woman goes on a journey to the end of the world and a boy proves he knows no fear. The stories in this collection will sweep you away to the captivating world of Nordic folklore. By turns enchanting, hilarious, chilling and cosy, these traditional fairy tales come to life alongside beautiful contemporary art in this special illustrated edition. And the artwork in this is absolutely gorgeous. There's one. I'll find another one because there is another picture in here that was just absolutely gorgeous. This picture doesn't scream winter. I don't know what does. Look at that. The illustrations, just, it makes me want to go to the Nordics. And me and my husband have decided that for our 10-year anniversary we want to go to Iceland, we want to go to Reykjavik and see the Northern Lights. So this is making me super excited, even though it's 5 years away. It's making me so excited. So I think this is perfect for winter and cozying up by a log fire and drinking some hot chocolate with cream and marshmallows on top. This would be perfect to go along with it. Okay, so now we're going to go over all the books that I don't have physical copies of, but I have read and think they are perfect for winter. So I'm going to talk about another trilogy, and this is the Winternight trilogy by Katherine Arden. So this includes The Bear and the Nightingale, The Girl in the Tower and The Winter of the Witch. It is all a continuation of one storyline. It's all one continuous storyline all the way through. And this is set in the very rural parts of Russia. Mainly in the first book it's rural, and then we go into more central Russia as the story goes on. So in this book we are following Vasilia, and she can see and speak to gods, but not gods in the large sense. These are very tiny little gods that she can see and speak to, and she realizes that the gods are dying because Russia is being converted into Christianity, and it is coming faster than Vasilia likes, and she knows that these gods are going to die if they are not accounted for. So offerings used to be left for these gods. So there was like gods of harvest, gods of household. So there would be a god that would guard your household, etc. If they weren't accounted for and they weren't given offerings, they would die. And Vasilia tries to tell this to her family, and her family, especially her new stepmother, thinks that this is witchcraft. And her stepmother decides to bring in a priest. And this priest tries to convert the whole town that Vasilia resides in, as well as Vasilia herself, but she is not budging. And this gives a very, very good religious commentary while also including elements of Russian folklore, which I really, really liked. And there's obviously mentions of witchcraft, and it's just a really, really stunning trilogy, and I would recommend anyone read it. Next is Girls Made of Snow and Glass by Melissa Bashardoust. I think that's how you say her name. And this is a Snow White retelling, but not the traditional Snow White. I would say if you've seen the movie Snow White and the Huntsman with Kristen Stewart in it, I would say it is more attuned to that retelling rather than the original Snow White. So we follow our two main characters, Lynette and Mina. I believe Lynette is, she's the daughter of a king, and then Mina is the daughter of a magician. Now both of these girls have something very similar. One, they're not that far apart in age, and they also have something very special about them. So Lynette, who is the daughter of the king, she has been made out of snow by a magician in the dead queen's image. And Mina, who is Lynette's new stepmother, has a heart made of glass. She has never loved anyone, but she thinks that that's normal. She has never felt love for anyone, but because her heart is made of glass, she thinks that that is normal. But they have a very, very strong bond and a strong friendship. That is until the king dies, and he appoints Mina head of the southern part of the realm, which knocks Lynette out of her place. But Lynette then sees that as, oh no, my stepmother wants to try and kill me, so she goes on the run. But when you read the ending of the book, it is not what you expect at all. You think that they are pitted against each other and doomed to fail from the start. Their friendship and their relationship is doomed to fail. But it actually doesn't end the way you expect. And I really, really liked it, but it's set in a very snowy landscape. It seems to snow every single day of the year where this book is set. And just the writing and the descriptions of this were so whimsical and poetic. It was absolutely gorgeous. So I would definitely recommend reading this in the winter season. I really hope you guys can still see me. I have got my little lamp on here, but it might just be starting to get a bit dark, so I'm sorry, I've only got a couple of books left to go through. Next, now I have mentioned this in my cozy recommendations, and it is Call Forth a Fox by Markelle Grabo. This is kind of like, oh, I can't remember. It's a retelling of some sort. We follow Roisin, she goes by Ro mainly in the book, and her sister Eowyn, and they live together in a very secluded part of the forest called Maple. The land is called Maple, which I think is so cute. And they have been foraging alone without any fear because their mother has gone to a different part of the realm to try and find a better life for them. And they are eventually going to meet their mother at the start of winter. And one day Roisin is foraging in the woods as she normally does, and she sees a copper-coloured fox, and she's instantly drawn to this fox, so she decides to follow it. And she then comes face to face with a grizzly bear. I know, not very good. And Ro is trapped. She can't escape this grizzly bear. But then Eowyn comes along and shoots the grizzly bear with her bow and arrow. And when the arrow hits the bear, it transforms into a young boy. Yeah, I know, right? So Eowyn then takes pity and decides to bring the boy back to their cottage, where she then heals him. And when he wakes up, all he knows is that 1, his name is Brend. 2, he knows Roisin's name. They've never met before. And 3, he has been cursed. So there is a found family vibe there as they try and work together to find out why Brend is cursed and how to break it. And the writing style in this, again, absolutely stunning. It was just, I wanted to curl up by the fire with them and just sit there and listen to all these stories that they were telling each other, and it's just absolutely gorgeous. And I really want to get a physical copy of this book. Okay, so I've got 2 more books to go through. Hopefully I can do it before the sun goes down completely. But the next book I want to talk about is Echo North by Joanna Ruth Meyer. This was one of my first reads of 2024, and I think it was one of my first 5 stars of 2024. This was beautiful. Now this is a Beauty and the Beast retelling. I would say retelling, it's more like a reimagining. So Echo, our main character, she was disfigured by a wolf when she was younger, and she is therefore shunned in her town. She doesn't go out much in fear of being laughed at by other people or stared at, or just people being outright mean to her. But her father and her brother, they absolutely adore her. They think she is the best thing since sliced bread. And one day her father goes out on a business trip and says, I'll be back in about 2 weeks. 2 weeks comes and goes. There is no sign. So Echo decides to go out into the forest to try and look for him. And she finds him freezing to death with the wolf that mauled her as a child standing over him. And the wolf gives her a proposition. This wolf can talk. So this wolf says, come and live with me in my house for 1 year. If you live with me for 1 year, your father will be saved. I will keep him alive until the end of this year, and then he will be saved if you surpass 1 year. So of course Echo agrees. And as you can probably imagine, the wolf and Echo start to form a friendship. And the house is magical. You can tell the house to do anything and it will do it for you. There's so many different rooms in this house, but the house has a very special room in it. But I'm not going to go into that because that will give away part of the story. But this was stunning. You know, walking through a snowy forest and just all of those vibes. It makes me want to wrap up in a snuggly coat, get my walking boots on and just go for a snowy walk. You know, I can feel my nose getting cold and my fingertips starting to go numb. It just gives you that kind of vibe. So I think it is perfect for the winter season. If the cover isn't wintry enough for you, I don't know what else could spell winter just as much as this. Okay, so the last book I'm going to recommend, this isn't as whimsical as the other books I have mentioned. This is quite dark and gives a lot of social commentary on feminism and how women are treated. It is The Witches of Vardo by Anya Bergman. This was a tough read, but it was amazing. I could not put this book down. Once I got like a few chapters in, I read it in, I think it was about 48 hours, and this is a chunky book. So we are following 3 storylines in The Witches of Vardo. We are following Zigri, who is a grieving mother. She has lost her husband and her son in a very short space of time. They both went on a fishing trip together and did not return, so she probably lost them both at the same time, and in her grief she decides to take up an affair with a local merchant in the town. But the merchant's wife then discovers this and tries to say that Zigri enchanted her husband. She is sent to Vardo. So the town that these people live in isn't Vardo. They are sent to Vardo to be tried and condemned as witches. That is where the witch burnings take place. So Zigri is sent there. But her daughter Ingeborg, or Inga as she is commonly referred to in the book, decides to go after her to try and bring her mother home. And her friend Maren, who is actually the daughter of a witch. And Maren gives Inga the courage to go and find her mother. And there are so many awful commentaries in this book. There are a lot of trigger warnings that I would advise looking up before you read this book. But this gives a lot of commentary on feminism, gender inequality, obviously witch trials, and how people were just wrongly tried for even dancing. That could have gotten you tried as a witch in the 1600s. It was a very hard read, but it was so prominent. That book stays in my brain. It's been almost a year since I've read it, and parts of it still stick in my brain because of how powerful the writing was. So I would definitely consider reading this, if not for the social commentary, but for the setting as well. It is set in Norway. So there is a lot of snowy landscapes, and at the very start of the book we follow Zigri being transported to Vardo on a sled with wolves, and she's looking up at the sky. She's laying down wrapped in furs, and she is looking up at the sky and she can see the northern lights. How stunning does that sound? It's not a stunning book by any means. It is a very hard book, but just that description made me had to put it on. It made me put it on this list. I can't even speak because it is a book that will stick with you, and I think the writing was absolutely gorgeous, and I would put it on any winter recommendation list. So that was all the books that I recommend to read in the winter season. I think this is like my 4th attempt at filming this video, so I'm really glad I finally got it done. Again, I'm sorry if the lighting has changed quite a lot. The sun is pretty much down now. So I finished this video just in time, so I'm going to put these books back on my shelves because they've been off my shelves for about a week because I've been trying to film this video so many times. But I hope that this video has given you some inspiration for your winter reading plans, and if you have enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like, subscribe, even comment on this video. Tell me what you want to read this winter, and that might give me some ideas on what to read during this very cold and cozy season. But I'm going to leave this video here, and I will see you very soon in the next one. Bye!